Hello, my name's Andrew, and today we're doing a long-term review of the Toetem Alpha Frontier. So these are my favorite barefoot sandals for really rugged, rocky terrain, both hiking and trail running. And they're a little bit thicker than something I would normally wear, but the protection is really nice. And over the past year, I've kind of found some extra uses from them, which are really surprising. But if you haven't heard of Toetem before, they're hands down the best barefoot brand because they try to use all natural materials. Like this is the hemp version. They've also got leather options for pretty much all of their barefoot sandals, and I made a specific video about this, but if you haven't tried either one, the main difference is that hemp has a little bit more texture. It's a good option for wetter conditions where you need something for your foot to hold on to so it doesn't slip. Rubber can definitely be really slippy, and sometimes leather can be slippery too. It tends to get slimy in wetter conditions. But another reason that Toetem is my favorite barefoot brand is the width and the shape. So they're extra wide, and then they have this sort of like slanted design, which I like better than the sort of like rounded design that you see in a lot of extra wide barefoot shoes. It looks, I don't know, a little bit like clown shoes. For some reason to me, when I see this slant, it feels a little bit more like an ancient warrior sandal. But anyways, the straps are really comfortable. They do have a Huarache thong, which I never used to like. I didn't like things between my feet, but it's really silky smooth. It doesn't rub at all, tapers towards the edge, and then it gets a little bit thicker here for some padding, kind of folds over. And then they've got plant-based material here. It's not a microfiber. I've kind of forgotten about this, and it's really soft. These are my favorite straps of any barefoot sandal. They just don't rub anywhere. It's just soft material in the front and along the sides here, and then in the heel. Toetem also uses a thicker but still soft material for the strap supports on the side, so you get a little bit of lateral stability as well. Found it feeling really hard on your ankles. Like Shama does this, they use plastic posts on the side, and I just can't wear them at all for that reason. But yeah, even the edging on the post area is very soft, so I've never had any rubbing problems at all in any of my Toetem sandals. Another feature I freaking love on the Toetems and all of Toetem sandals is this strap adjustment here. Essentially, if you slide it all the way to the front, you've got a lot of open space here, so it's very easy to slip your foot on and off without touching the Velcro. You can just kind of pull it down around your heel, and it has a really good lockdown, but then the straps have just enough give where you can pull them off without too much work. So yeah, it's like a borderline flip-flop when you've got it like this, and that's really nice for casual. Ironically, I've ended up using these a lot as a house slipper. The thing I like about the Frontier in specific is that it's a bit thicker, so you have a lot of insulation here if you're in a house where the floors are cold. Like I'm going back and forth between my van build, my mom's house right now, and she has central AC, so it's freezing cold in the summer for the floors, and then it's also freezing cold in the winter because there's not a lot of insulation there. So I found these to be really great for all season use. But even though they're thicker, they've got a Vibram sole, and this is the Mega Grip material. It's just the best sole material of all time for barefoot shoes because you can see that it's actually got a lot of squish here, but it's very durable, very tacky, it's non-slip. Then the Frontier has a bit of foam layer in the middle, so that provides some more insulation from the cold. Like I mentioned though, the Frontier is a little bit thicker than something I would normally wear for a barefoot sandal, and has a little more squish than I would want if I was standing on my feet all day long. It's fine if I'm like sitting, working at the computer and then getting up for a few minutes and I don't know, chopping some meat up or whatever. But if I was back working at a shoe sales job on concrete, standing on my feet and walking around all day long, I'd probably want something a little bit thinner, a little bit firmer so that my feet and my tendons weren't sinking in. Don't get me wrong, it's nothing like a cushioned shoe, where it's really mushy, but it's something that I just notice if I'm standing on my feet too long. The other thing you can do with this strap is move it all the way to the back, and then you get this really nice cinch around your ankle. Toetem also sells a meta strap. You can put an extra one there for a little bit more stability, but I just have never needed it. I think they work perfectly fine on their own, even on really steep and unstable rocky terrain. You've also got an adjustment strap here and then around back. They're both Velcro, so they're really easy to get on and off. But one pro tip from having Velcro barefoot sandals before is that I would basically never use these to take them on and off, because the more time you do this to the Velcro, the more it wears out. It can end up looking like my Xero Z-Treks here, which are a great sandal, but they've completely worn out in the back because I would always be doing this. So if you're really gonna be using them a lot on some like punishing trails where you could be working the Velcro loose, what I'd recommend is getting some kind of rubber band or maybe like a little strap here, like one of these. They're really cheap, but it can just help give a little extra support to the Velcro so it doesn't pull loose. And something interesting I realized about these sandals and Toetems in general, looking at it today, is that the strap was a little bit long for me. I have pretty narrow ankles, so I really didn't need that much. but I've really never trimmed it because it's not quite in the way. But if you do want to trim it, the interesting thing is that they've stitched in segments here. So if you cut it right about there, it's not gonna fray because you've got a stitch line there. I don't know if this is intentional, but if it is, it's kind of genius. Anyways, in terms of the tread, it's 12 millimeters. Like I said, Vibram Mega Grip. This is the best tread in the world for rocky terrain. It is super duper grippy. It's also really soft feeling as well, so good for really aggressive rocky trails that could beat up your feet otherwise. Has these triangle lugs in the middle, which are nice for soft ground, kind of like a claw-like grip. And then around the outside, you've got these bigger blocks, which are nice for providing some protection on harder rocks. But there's also a decent amount of space in here, so you can get some ground feel coming up there. It's a really nice balance of protection and sensitivity. That said, the one drawback of having a thicker, more protective barefoot sandal like this is that your foot is higher off the ground, so I found they do feel a little bit tippy if I'm on, quite a steep slope running sideways. And so you want to make sure that you really have the straps locked in the back for stability, because it's not a barefoot shoe, you don't have that extra layer giving you support on top. In terms of alternatives, this is the Toetem Alpha blackbear. This is my all-time favorite barefoot sandal. It's a bit lighter. There's not as much padding here, but I find it just offers more of a barefoot experience. Still has that extra wide toe box though, and this is the leather one, which I really love. Like all leather, you can add some wax long term to make it a little bit more waterproof and durable. And the blackbear also has that same strap setup where you can make it a lot more snug or a lot more loose to be more flip-floppy. But the main difference is just the sole. It's 5 millimeters, really flexible. This is also Vibram sole. It's not quite as grippy as the Vibram Mega Grip, but there is more sensitivity, more flexibility. It's more agile sandal, and you're closer to the ground. So I just feel more stable in these versus higher, more padded sandal. But the tread's not as deep, so they don't work as well on steep, muddy hills as the Mega Grip. Another similar brand to Toetem is Deliberate Life Designs. They make custom sandals, so if you're someone that has a very different foot shape or you're just very picky about how you want your sandals to look or to fit, they're a really excellent option. You can send them a tracing of your foot and they'll make exactly what you want. They also have multiple footbed materials to choose from, so it's kind of like a build your own sandals sort of experience. And I'm forgetting what this is called, but it has a nice rough sort of sandpapery material, which is excellent on really wet trails because it gives your foot a lot to grip onto. And although it's not as natural as hemp, the nice thing about synthetic is that it dries faster and it doesn't feel swampy. The thong's also a little different. It has a cord instead of a strap, and it worked fine for me. I never had any rubbing issues. I would say that the strap feels just a little bit silkier, a little bit smoother. But Deliberate also makes wider straps, which I found work nicely, even though they're not quite as soft as the sort of plant-based microfiber of Toetem. The added surface area really helps it not rub on your skin, and again, it's silky smooth on the back straps as well. In terms of adjustment, it's kind of similar to Toetem. I would say Totem's a little bit more customizable, but the Deliberates also have the sides and then the back, and they use a buckle instead of Velcro, which is a little bit more durable, but it's also not quite as easy to adjust. And this one, the Perception, has a 7 millimeter sole, so nice middle of the road option. It's very similar to the Alpha blackbear, has the same Vibram sole, but just a little bit thicker top footbed. And like Toetem, they have multiple options with the Mega Grip tread and then varying amounts of padding in between. If you don't like Hirachis, then this is the Xero Z-Trek. It's got a cross strap instead of the thong up front, so there's nothing in between your toes. Although it does taper in front, so this fits more medium width to semi-wide feet. It did also have some texture when I started out with them, but I've had these for like 8 years now, so it's worn down quite a bit and they're very slippery at this point. Straps are nice and soft though. I never had any issues with rubbing with the Z-Trek, and it is a good budget option. It's significantly less expensive than the others. You could also check out the Monk Revo if you want a natural option with leather on top. One thing I don't like about the Z-Trek though is it's got this heel cup in the back. It's kind of pointless that it just like traps stones, but it's open enough that you can just shake them out easily. In terms of the straps, it's kind of like a hybrid between Deliberate Life Designs and Toetem because it's got the buckle here, but then it's got the Velcro in the back. Like I said, the Velcro wore out, so I'd recommend getting some sort of durable rubber band to hold it in place. And honestly, you don't need to ever take the Velcro off. You can just slip it around your heel. For the sole, it's 6 millimeters, so just slightly thicker than the Toetem Alpha blackbear. Really good amount of flexibility, and Xero is one of the most durable rubbers for barefoot brands. It does feel a little bit harder, but offers some nice protection, and it's thin enough that doesn't make too much of a difference. It did wear down eventually, but like I said, I've had them for 8 years at this point. Also has a nice tread pattern for a thinner sandal. It's got the chevron lugs going this way for traction going up hills, and then the opposite direction for your heels going down. But yeah, overall a good, durable, lightweight, very packable barefoot sandal for trails. Finally, if you want something for casual, this is the Softstar Camino. It's kind of like a barefoot Birkenstock. The one thing I don't like about it is that they don't have as much room here up front stock, although sometimes you can message Softstar store and just have them do a little bit of customization for your shoes, so that's something to try. It has a nice suede footbed though with just a little bit of padding, then some great leather straps across the top. They're also very smooth, they don't rub, and then it has a back strap as well, so it's actually great for doing longer walks, whether that's on roads or trails. And for the sole, it's 14 millimeters, so actually it has the same Vibram sole as the lighter Toetem, the Alpha, but then you've got quite a bit of padding here. So while it does have a decent amount of vertical flex, certainly a lot more than a traditional Birkenstock, the horizontal flexibility is very minimal. You really have to put a lot of pressure on it to try to get it to bend. That said, because of the padding on top, I think they feel really nice walking on roads for a casual sandal, and they're kind of like Toetem in the sense that if you have like cold floors or maybe it's a little bit wet and you're trying to get your foot off the ground, the extra height is nice for some insulation. All right, so that's my long-term review of the Toetem Alpha Frontier, but if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below, browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool, my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Toetem Alpha Frontier or about barefoot sandals in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, catch you next time, peace.